Welcome to our conversation this evening with Rich and Nick from Nourish Community. Welcome. They got in touch and said they'd love to have a catch up with people after the workshop that they delivered, which was super successful, and just have a chat with other people to see how things were growing in their gardens, but also to explore the topic of the future of our food. We've all experienced a slight instability with emptier shelves and prices going up. There's a real cost of living crisis going on, and we felt it would be a really important conversation to have, and how we can come up with some solutions for ourselves and our communities. So I'm going to hand over to Rich and Nick. It's a real pleasure to have them here, and thank you all for joining us this beautiful evening. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How you doing?
Good evening. It's great to be here with you guys again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Especially when weather's like this. I know we'd love to be outside. Maybe like we're saying, maybe we'll take it outside one day, one night.
But yeah, we'll kind of get to it really. We were just talking a little while ago how we just thought it'd be great to catch up with a lot of people from the workshops we did, and then also just people who we haven't actually met or spoken to before, because I think we've all got a lot in common, that we're interested in food and looking at exploring food growing, and just I think we're all pretty mindful people, aren't we? And we just thought, what a great way to just have a bit of like a relaxed kind of evening chat and just see how everyone's getting on. And then I think it's a good idea to raise some points about where we see the future of food going, and just kind of like open that up for like a healthy discussion.
Exactly. Yeah, because we've been doing the in-person workshops, the online ones. The community's growing in a really lovely way. Sort of quite wide and far and strong. And we just thought, we're now into June, and things are starting to pick up even more now. We've had some challenges with certain things, even with the weather, the amazing sun we've had. But I thought it'd be really nice to just connect again and just have like you said, a casual conversation. And just sort of see how we can collectively sort of make some ideas and plans for moving forward, and how we can start to put in place as well some of the little steps and infrastructure to create the environment we want more and we want to bring into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we look at just what in the media and all that stuff, it can be quite a dark, depressive place. However, outside of that, there's so much amazing stuff going on, and
so much good stuff,
and we really want to keep this momentum, this movement alive and going, and just kind of bring people together, because it's been one of the best things we've ever done. And even if we can't all meet up in person, over Zoom, I think is a pretty great thing. So we have some questions that we wanted to ask, and then I don't know if people put it in the notes, then I don't know, Sammy, if you want to we can maybe look at the chat, but I don't want to get too distracted by that. Maybe Sammy, if there's any questions, if we ask some questions, you guys can maybe answer, you can ask questions, and then we'll just kind of like go with the flow. I think what we're going to aim to do here, what we're going to aim to do here is do the first half talking about just general food growing questions and how's everyone getting on, successes, challenges, that type of thing. And in the second half, we kind of want to steer it towards more about the future of food and where we see it kind of going. I think that's a really hot topic.
Yeah, some pros, some cons, some strengths, some weaknesses, and then I think sort of making some sort of step-by-step action plans, and we could even then reconnect again at a later date as the seasons move on, and see how we're all doing, and just build momentum. I think just to sort of add to it, for us, just with not overthinking it and just taking one step at a time, we're really finding momentum is building now. And we're sort of really wanting to add other components into what we are doing. Like, for example, this evening, also talking about sort of wider topics outside of our own growing space.
Yeah, absolutely. So
what have we got going on here in the chat then? So
spinach. Yeah, let's start with these then. So one from Karen saying, my spinach seedlings now grown seem very spindly. Any suggestions? So the first things that come to mind are, at the moment, spinach is going like spinach flowers around now. So a lot of energy will be focused in the plant, just bolting, going up and spindly. It's no longer, the energy is no longer in the first stage, which is leaf production and growing. It's now when all the energy is going to creating a big long shoot to produce a flower, to produce seeds. So we actually
We're finding that kind of with our spinach as well. With the recent heat, and we'll talk about some of the implications we've had in the garden. The spinach is one of them because of the recent heat, and so much of it. Yeah, like Rich was saying, a lot of leafy greens are trying to are bolting now. So it might be just literally because of that.
So for instance, we're now basically taking out our spinach plants because they're bolting, and we won't re-sow our spinach till about August time. So you miss that window, that flowering period. So then what you'll do is if you re-sow in about August, you can then get the last of the summer's energy to get that plant growing. And then if you can have it under cover or even just outside, you will get a good few months of leaf production as you go into the colder months.
Yeah. So yeah, it could very well be down to bolting just because the recent conditions. Yeah. And you can grow great salads, even though you kind of naturally want more lighter food during the summer months. Salad actually, when grown under cover outside, like we do in our polytunnel, we can have really good salad all through the winter.
Yeah, like mustard greens. So in August, we start sowing our spinach, our wild rocket. We sow a load of mustard greens and a few other things for leaf production. Yes, there's
I hope that answers or sheds a bit of light or ideas to it.
And then we've got one from Vicky about appropriate fruits and vegetables to grow in the house, no access to a garden. So we don't really grow that many fruits, to be honest. We grow some strawberries. I think
melons.
Melons. Yeah.
Have you got a conservatory?
You can get bush to dwarf variety of like different berries. So we have strawberries growing out of literally pots that we have just fixed to a trellis. So you could potentially, if you're limited on space, create some vertical. Shelving really. Vertical containers and just grow some bush varieties. So your strawberries, a number of different berries. I think that's what we would do.
Yeah, and salads would be good because it wouldn't be such an intense heat and light as well. So leafy greens and herbs.
Yeah, and then you can multi-sow. You could even multi-sow some of your root vegetables like your beetroots, your radishes. You could then do some carrots. I probably wouldn't multi-sow them. So just think about things that you can grow. Multi-sowing. If you're limited on space, then multi-sowing is a really good shout. We've got on our grow guides, which I think we're putting the link in somewhere. If you don't have it already, we have a list of different vegetables that you can multi-sow, and our recommended kind of numbers that you can get away with. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I'm mindful that I want to try and get through these questions because they're really coming in now.
Tomato plants. Sorry, could you just explain what multi-sow is, please, to those that aren't sure? Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks.
Apologies. So multi-sowing, it's simply put, it is sowing more than one. You can do a single sown seed or multi-sown seed. So you would do, for example, when you plant one seed, depending what you're doing. So
give an example, like beetroot's a really good example.
Yeah, beetroot, I'd say around no more than 5. Or onions, you can do 5, 6, something like that. And then what you would do as they start to grow, you would thin out the smaller ones. So the onions,
just to say, right at the start, when it comes to sowing, when it comes to the propagation, instead of sowing one seed, one onion seed or one beetroot seed, you are literally sowing 4 or 5 beetroot seeds together in either direct sow them in the ground, but we recommend module trays because you just have better control over them from pests. And then so you will literally grow a clump of 5 young beetroot plants as a plug, and then you will plant that, and as they grow, you will literally twist out the larger beetroots. So you get a staggered. So you grow number one, you're growing literally 5 times the amount of beetroot in the same space you grow one. As they grow, you'll just thin out the larger ones, leaving the remaining 2 or 3 to become full-size beetroots, or if you want them as baby beetroots, have them as baby beetroots. It's just a really good way to maximize your yield with the space you have, and you get staggered harvest, a staggered crop, because you can stagger your 5 beetroot how you want to pick them. I hope that answers.
I hope that makes sense. Yeah, and there's a lot of different.
You can multi-sow salad leaves.
So many. But again, on this list, which we'll pop the link somewhere to get access to it. Yeah, we've just done a chart with all of them because there's so many, and each one like sort of different numbers, quantities.
So tomatoes, do we pinch out or not? I have several types growing and the garden's delight. It's becoming very bushy. So, okay, so when it comes to tomatoes, what we do is we grow indeterminate tomatoes. They are the ones that, so you've got your bush type and then you've got your indeterminate type. Indeterminate, it will just basically keep growing until the frost gets it, or it basically dies. And what we do, and what a lot of other growers do that we follow, is they will focus on taking out all the side shoots, because the tomato plant will just keep doing all these. It's called in the armpit, where the leaf comes out, it will do a side shoot. So we are constantly taking out these side shoots because we want to channel that energy. We want to channel that energy to the areas where the trusses, where the vines will be produced. If we just let it go wild, there's a potential that the energy will be so diluted, you might get more tomatoes, but you might get lower quality potentially. Whereas if you channel that energy by pruning the side shoots, you can get stronger, more abundant vines in our experience. And then once you get to around, I believe it's like the middle of August, we usually do it, we will then pinch the top of the tomato plant, because it's so far into the season now, we want to kind of stop the growing energy as such, and then focus the last of the summer's energy into just to producing tomatoes.
If you leave it too long, then unfortunately too much of the energy will then dissipate, and not all of them will start to ripen.
So you'll be left
fully ripen.
You'll be left with a load of green ones.
Which you can work with, but so we would only pinch out right at the end, sort of late.
And also by keeping on top of the pruning the side shoots and removing some of the lower leaves, we tend to remove about the first foot of the leaves. You're allowing the plant to receive more airflow, so it keeps the risk of like powdery mildew and blight at bay, because they're prone to that.
More airflow sort of keeps the plant more dry. And that's on a separate note. With sort of more vining plants, you do want to water just the base and keep the actual plant itself as dry as possible.
Okay, great. So we've got a great to know. Replant spinach August. Brilliant. So what we're going to do, Claire, we are the second half of the chat. We are going to go on to the future of food. So let's definitely revisit that one. But great question, by the way. Thank you.
We'll go into that in a second. And then best watering tips to keep plants hydrated during these dry spells.
Number one, mulch. If you can mulch, meaning you can. So, for instance, a mulch is effectively a word for creating like a cover. So a mulch tends to be usually more of a kind of like a rougher medium. So it could be like
it could be leaves, straw, even broken down chippings, not fresh chippings, manure. Even with some stuff you use, grass cuttings. You're basically, it helps to lock in the moisture. So we find that really helps.
So the top of our mulch. So first of all, by mulching, also by creating something called a living mulch, which basically means you just do slightly more intensive growing. So multi-sowing is a perfect example. When you grow a multi-sow of onions or beetroot, you have this canopy of leaves, and that massively blocks out the sun hitting the soil. So it locks in them, it increases more moisture retention and stops basically limits evaporation. So a mulch and more intensive growing.
There are two things we find work really well, and because we do what we call no dig method, where we build the beds up, so we have quite a well established thick amount of growing medium, and then it's quite dense. So that itself acts like a sponge, helps to lock in a lot of the moisture. So where on top it might sort of dry and go a bit crispy, which is great because it reduces the amount of pests that want to travel over it. Quite often, if you were to just what we call the finger test, like put a finger in an inch or two, generally there's moisture locked in there for a lot longer. So we've managed to massively reduce down our watering over the last couple of years since we've done this.
And for instance, when growing stuff like cucurbits, so like your melons, your cucumbers, your squashes, they are prone, those leaves, that if those leaves become wet quite regularly and the temperature rises and it creates humidity, they're very prone to like blight and powdery mildew, tomatoes as well, potatoes. So regarding the watering question, if you can aim to, this is my opinion, if you can water before the sun gets up too much and potentially creates the humidity, that's a really great idea. If you can aim to water, especially like your tomatoes, cucumbers, melons, That's worked really, really well for us. We, touch wood, don't get any issues with like disease and stuff like that on the plants. Potentially right at the end of the year, even in like November, December time, is when we've sometimes had like blight. But yeah, so that's another little tip regarding watering. I hope that answers your question a bit. When do you stop watering potatoes? When the flower appears, after the apple, or when they wilt? Confused. So to be honest, what we've done with our potatoes is we just continually, water them. We literally monitor the leaves, and if they will, they will get watered. One great thing is with no dig is that where the soil structure becomes a lot stronger and it acts as like a sponge, it locks in that moisture. So we don't, touch wood, we don't actually really need to water our potatoes that much once they become established. But regarding like the flowers and stuff, in our experience, all we have done is we have pretty much watered them ongoing right up to the end when we harvest them. Once they actually start to, if we leave them in, if we leave the potatoes in the ground because we don't want to take them up, we want to store them in the ground, then we will stop watering them when the plant starts to die off. Yeah. But we will make sure those leaves are always abundant, always, like, I don't know, buoyant's the right word, but we always make sure the leaves always have life in them. We don't really follow any other rules apart from that, and it seems to work really well. I hope that helps.
Can you sow mustard and cress seeds as a green mulch? If yes, and what height would you cut them down? I think you just need to grow so much of it. If you're doing mustard greens, you can get like I forget what the green manure mustard variety is, but you can. We didn't do a mustard cover crop. I think that if that's what you're referring to, using it as like a cover crop just to like boost the soil's fertility over like, say you've got a bed left available. Can you say mustard and cress? I know people have. We haven't used mustard as a cover crop, but I know it's a popular one. We used it a few years ago, and I forget the seed mix we did. I think it was like rye. It was a few of those grasses, but they keep coming back. They do keep coming back. But what I know what some people do when they do their cover crops is like a couple months out, or like 2 or 3 months out before the bed is needed in spring, they will cut it down, cut and drop basically, and then they will either let that then break down, or then they will then mulch on top of that and let the whole thing just naturally break down together. So then 2 or 3 months past that, the bed should be ready to rock and roll for you to plant straight in. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. In my head it makes sense, but I don't know if I'm relaying it as effective. I think that's up to date with the
now, if that's up to date there, I've got some questions here from James. Thank you very much, James. You're still there. So questions. With the succession sowing, are you direct sowing in the bed? If so, would you use a cloche? Would a cloche be beneficial to help germination? So what we do is we tend to sow the majority of our seeds always in a module tray, because we have, even if the soil is really nice and warm, it just gives us more control over the germination, so it's less chance of damage from pests. And then what we can do is we can pick out the strongest seedlings to then go in the ground, because not just when space is limited, but in an ideal world, you always want to make sure that valuable ground, that grow space, is being utilized with your strongest young plants. With direct sowing, loads of people direct sow. We will direct sow carrots. We've tried transplanting them and it doesn't work. So we do direct sow carrots, but I know that a lot of people will direct sow tons of seeds. You just run the risk. There's an increased risk of pests like birds. Birds like to dig through our beds, slugs and rodents eating the seeds or seedlings before they become established. You can cover them, absolutely. That's definitely going to protect them. We used our thermocrop fleece, right at the start of the year when we planted out some of our broccolis, we literally just put a thermocrop right over the top.
And these plugs, they were probably 3 to 4 inches maximum. So just little. They're a purple sprouting variety.
So James, absolutely give direct sowing a go. But in my opinion, I would direct sow some. I would then sow some in a module tray and then observe the germination rate. Do you have birds that are going to dive through your beds? You know, because some of the birds dive through some of the carrots that we direct sowed at the start of the year. So we've got patches in our carrots. So yeah, maybe just observe your garden and see how nature acts, interacting with your direct sowing. And then we haven't grown kiwis. We've spoken about kiwis, but we've never grown kiwis.
I think I don't know if I'm right on if I misread this. It might take 2 years to establish. I don't know if anybody knows about growing kiwis until they start bearing fruit.
Yeah, but does anyone grow kiwis in the group? Anyone?
Because it's something I'd love to do. We're listening about this the other day, actually. But yeah, we haven't. It's something I think we might introduce at some point. But yeah, so unfortunately, no, we haven't got experience in it.
But James, let's continue that conversation.
Our melons tend to do pretty well. They're a quick turnaround.
Next question: how is your okra doing? Slowly. It's growing slowly. Okra really demands a lot of heat, and only recently, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, since we've had the big spike in heat, our okra is now starting to grow. What we're doing is we potted them up, but because they are growing so slowly, even though they're in a polytunnel, we're going to plant them in a space and then intercrop chili plants as well, because if those okra just don't do as well as we hoped, we at least know that we've got some chili plants in there, taking advantage of that space. I really want the okra to do well because bloody love okra. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on how that goes. And how are you planning ahead for autumn winter? Great question. So at the moment, we are sowing our kind of like second batch of the summer plants. So
we've just had a load more seeds turn up. So this will be the second half. The main ones being
so we've got like bush beans. We've still got some climbing peas. We've got edamame. We've got more carrot seeds. We've got more beetroot, spring onions, because spring onions you can get more succession out of them because they're a faster turnaround. We've got more lettuces. What else we've got? And then, we're also then sowing our cauliflowers. We've already done our kales, Brussels sprouts. We're sowing our swede. We've already got quite a few of our autumn crops already as young plugs. But yeah, we're now in this kind of like transition where in the next few weeks, some of our potato beds will be getting emptied. A load of our beetroots will be coming out.
Our onion bed we're taking out very soon, a bit unfortunately prematurely. So, we're in this we'll be over the next few weeks in this transition period, really.
So we're going through this big kind of like succession kind of like change at the moment. But any plants that still don't, even if they outgrow their module tray, we will then pot them up while we wait for the beds to become available. So our leeks, because leeks take quite a while, we potted them up a couple of weeks ago, and so we've got loads of little pots lying around now. And then as soon as they will now actually be taking our onion bed, because our onion bed has bolted in the heat, which is a bit of a shame, but they're still good. But we will remulch the bed, and then all of our multi-sown leeks will be going into those beds. And then we're hoping for a pretty smooth transition, but we will see how the next 4 to 6 weeks kind of goes with our crops. But yeah, we'll do some more videos and stuff online showing how the succession goes, really. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
And then what else have we got going on?
Do you feed
do we feed our veggies? We don't, to put it simply. Not specific feeds. We just work on getting the best quality mulch that we build our beds up, and then a high quality organic multi-purpose compost when we can.
But our compost is almost going to be ready, some of it.
Yeah, and then what is exciting is, that was bought in organic compost. To answer it simply, we don't use specific feeds. We just make sure the ground, the actual soil and the mulch is healthy and it's all organic. We focus on feeding the ground, not the plant. So yeah, I'm not sure we've got a hotbed in one of our polytunnels. We still need to take that apart. That'll be sort of breaking down. We've got a hotbed outside that'll be breaking down, and our actual compost. We've got 4 compost bays. So we're really hoping this year is going to be our first year where we're going to have quite a sufficient amount of our own home produced compost. So that will be towards the end of the year when the beds are more empty, even though we'll be growing throughout the winter. We will then put a light covering of no more than 50 mil, 2 inches over all the beds. If there are anything specific, like more flowers, we find some might struggle a bit more. Then when we've been actually planting them, we will put an organic compost directly around the actual plug itself, but we don't use actually specific feeds.
Yeah, it was game changing when we kind of learned the whole feed the soil, not the plants. That's the mantra that we kind of adopt: feed the soil, not the plants. Because when you feed the soil, you build the soil health. You have this abundant ecosystem under the ground ready for when you put your plants in, they can tap into that and just grow. It has made our growing so much better. The plants do so much more well, and also it's no longer a headache. You know,
one thing I would like to explore is using stinging nettles, and some cuttings. You can sort of ferment. It kind of like ferments, and then that can be a natural way of feeding as well. So we will look at that at some point.
I'm mindful of the time. It's now just gone 1:30. I think if we do the last of these questions, and then I think with the time we've got, we should probably transition into the future of food. I think would be a pretty smart move.
Are there any questions specifically, or any sort of anything, strengths, weaknesses, pros, cons that you've had recently? Like, for example, like we're saying, our onions, they weren't supposed to come out till August, but because of the heat, so the majority have bolted, so they will be coming out soon. So we've sort of rethought a couple of things. But yeah, has anyone got anything that they've noticed has happened in their garden recently?
I just ask actually, because I'm really pleased that someone mentioned the spinach thing, because that happened to me as well. And so, do you think that's the same with all leafy greens? I mean, can I go for it maybe and sort of take those out and go for lettuce instead? What would you replace it with?
Great question. So yeah, so number one, no, it's not all leafy greens. For instance, mustard greens, spinach, watercress, rocket.
Rocket's a good one for it.
They right now they're in their flowering period. We had some leftover mustard seeds from last year, and I sowed them about a month ago because I thought, why not? Let's just see. Even if we get a few leaves, let's see what happens. And I think we had a couple of weeks of like nice baby leaves, and then boom! It blows my mind how, like, obviously plants are really smart, but they're flowering. So what we are focusing on, what we do is we focus more on like lettuces, because lettuces, not only do they grow fast, but you can grow them throughout the summer. It's not we didn't really see our lettuces bolt last year until towards the end of the summer. We got a really, really long harvest, a long crop from one sowing of lettuces last year. This year, what we're doing is, because we've increased our production, is we're now about to succession a whole other load of lettuces. We have had a spike in heat, and a couple of lettuces are looking like they want to bolt.
So we've got one on our outside hotbed, haven't we? Actually,
yeah.
It looks like it's trying to bolt now, isn't it? But generally speaking, the cos lettuce, the variety we are growing, they're doing really well actually. Chard isn't everyone's favorite, but some people love chard. Chard is a great one to be sowing now. Kale, I know, again, we're not kind of, it's maybe a bit more of like a rougher leaf for a salad. But what we found is with the kale, with our Cavolo Nero, and now's a good time to sow Cavolo Nero, kale, because if early spring is when kale goes into its flowering period. So we had a fantastic crop right through winter of our kale last year, and then spring came, and then they all bolted. James, because I think one of your kale bolted. When did you sow your kale? I'm really interested.
I think it would have been about this time last year, actually.
This time last year. Okay.
I can't quite remember. Sorry, but yeah, the seed pods are forming now. So I'm at a point where I should be kind of harvesting those seed pods and saving, well, get planting them again, or get sowing them, making sure they don't spread everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you've had a really long season out of that, because we cut our kale down, what, 2 months ago?
Yeah, the last ones.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I guess it.
Well, they were almost a year, weren't they?
Yeah, almost a year. Yeah. So I guess you're bang smack, or at least last month, the last couple of months, that was a real kind of like flowering period for kale. But yeah, our kale plants now are, well, they're still in their module trays. They'll be going out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we're anticipating another really good long season of kale leaves. So yeah, hopefully that will be a success. Sammy, do you have a question?
No, I think that's it. I think this is maybe a good point. We haven't had many more questions in the chat. This might be a good point to move the conversation on.
Okay, brilliant. So we obviously, I think this group is a pretty aware group of certain things that are going on in the world, and we, as food growers and involved with the community more and more these days, we are always looking at what's going on, and some of it we like, some of it we don't like. So in our opinion, we see two very different worlds playing out right now when it comes to food production, all that type of thing. On one side, we've got bug burgers, fake meat, precision breeding, man playing God with our food, and we're going to explore pros and cons of that. And then on the other side of that, we see a big movement, a big push for small scale, mainly hopefully organic growers and farmers that are learning, like we are, to work more with nature as opposed to working against nature.
Yeah, and just that rise in awareness of the more sustainable and regenerative growing spaces, really,
like People's Food and Farming Alliance.
Exactly.
So we see a bit of a dark road, and then we see a really bright road as well. And I think we like to focus on solutions and the positives, however, always being aware of both sides of the story, I guess.
I've asked in the chat, actually, guys, what people's thoughts are about the future of food and where it could go, and where they actually think it's going to go. So it'd be interesting to get some of those ideas if you're talking about this kind of polarity and two sort of paths that you could go down. It'd be interesting to know what other people think. Hope you don't mind putting that in there.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to hear what people think, really, and sort of just sort of have an idea, a bit of a discussion about sort of steps moving forward. And I mean, it's really what we, us, the collective, are sort of already doing. It's carrying that, spreading awareness, and sort of educating people as much as we can. But like with many things, we definitely see, and I think there is going to be two sort of realities running side by side, so to speak. I think I'm just going to come out and say it. I'll be fairly mindful, is that when a select few of powerful people have such control over the food and the money, it always begs the question, whose interests or whose best interests do they have in mind? And it doesn't take a lot of looking into things to see that a very select powerful few have quite a lot of control over seed production, and turning our food, and when I mean food, I'm talking about plants and animals, turning it or blending it with technology and trying to control that technology. And yes, some people will say it's to help deal with this hunger food crisis, which is questionable in my opinion. And when people try and put a patent on food, on seeds, and then take complete control and power over that, it can really put us at risk. There's a lot of experimentation going on at the moment. I don't know if anyone, question. Is anyone aware of or been looking at precision breeding? It was a recent law, an act passed by back in March. A act. It's called the Genetic Technology Precision Breeding Act 2023. But it wasn't, surprisingly enough, it wasn't covered by really mainstream media. My personal journey.
It'd be good to, if anyone has heard of that, maybe you could use the reactions button at the bottom and just sort of raise your hand to see whether people had heard of that or not.
Not, I haven't explicitly heard of it myself, but kind of I have heard snippets of it.
Yeah.
So
So,
kind of,
sorry, James.
no,
Sorry,
so,
James.
and it will kind of reflect the journey that you're talking about in terms of like the dark side and how born out of people's resistance to that. There's lots of great stuff happening. Would be my thoughts.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, Vicky, you're right. It was the one that
Charles passed.
Yeah. He's very much involved. For anyone who's aware of the World Economic Forum, he's very much part of that elitist group, and they really do like to play with human beings and animals and nature. And
I mean, yeah, there's this huge push for genetically modified food, huge push, and trying to shift people away from eating animal products and into lab-grown food. I mean, we actually went plant-based almost 10 years ago. And yeah, there is a purpose, I feel, for some fake meats, but the more sort of naturally produced ones, not that synthetic. Yeah, it is transition food for some people, and we still dabble a bit on the barbecue, we do. But there's such a push now for this, and this act that was passed, there was something to do with, it's like GMO, then like sort of 10x. It's hugely playing with the sort of the genetic makeup of the food, both in animals and plant matter.
And that's a really great point there, James. The whole plant-based food thing in shops, it's loaded full of crap.
It is
90%.
Because
90% of it is loaded full of crap. It's a complete misconception, just to say the least. Again, it's just such a deep subject, or a deep subject. I mean, natural fruits and vegetables, I think we can all probably agree that they are pretty good for us. But it's gotten way out of control, and the way certain organizations are steering this fake food thing with all the hormones and what it's doing to men and women and children, I think that's pretty scary. And I think the more we kind of gravitate more back to nature and do our best to get back to nature and just include more, get more color back on our plates, but also spreading awareness of like okay, food labeling, that's another major thing. And part of this new act that was put into place, it wasn't just about gene editing plants and animals, but it was also about like the marketing and the labeling and what they can
or don't have to now put on. So there's been a change in it, and it's a topic we're still educating ourselves on. So we'd love to hear anybody that knows any more. But there has been, unfortunately, a change in what they actually legally, which means nothing, so to speak, what they have to make public now. So yeah, there's a huge push for this plant-based sort of vegan foods. And like I said, we're almost 10 years plant-based, and just because you eat those things doesn't mean it's healthy. There's some awful things out there. So it's growing that awareness and monitoring these corporations and what the WEF are pushing for the greater good of the planet. So that we're going to start to shift more awareness to this sort of area of food growing, and start to maybe even run a few more talks on it and interviewing a few more people, because I think we need to not be caught up in, not that we necessarily are, but what we're like with a lot of things, like what's happened over the last few years, what we were told we should do and what might not necessarily be happening. And we saw the negative effects of what they were telling the masses to do for the greater good of the planet. This also is going to be, we feel, another sort of add-on to that. So yeah, it's really growing the awareness of that and doing what we can to sort of move over, especially not everybody can eat organic. Unfortunately, the times at the moment, it's a premium price product, and not everybody can grow their own food. So what we want to do is, how can we build more momentum and educate and inspire more people to start growing or connect with projects and help. We're speaking with people that are also wanting to set up their own food growing projects, just so you can start implementing that a bit more yourself, really.
And one thing we're playing around with at the moment is so what we donate. Okay, we donate Rich speak. We donate most of our produce. However, we're looking to sell a small amount. But what we are doing is doing our best to obviously, well, we are selling it at non-organic prices because we are making incomes through our workshops and education, which allows us, if we are to sell, is to sell organic at like cheap, affordable prices, because that's what we want to see more, happen. And I know not everyone can do that. They might be really back up against the wall, but I hope that we can somehow, and we're constantly developing, is inspire people to grow organic as much as possible. And also, if they are to sell it, find other ways or explore other ways to create income streams around your food project, let's say, so it can allow you to sell organic at a affordable price, so people who are struggling financially can have access to organic food. You know, organic shouldn't be this trend. You know, again, it's returning back to tradition, and I think we're very much exploring at the moment with our project how we can sustainably do that, if that makes sense. Because I mean, yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on in the world right now. Just seen some of the comments.
And yeah, Karen, yeah, we're aware of what's going on, deep state, and certain things.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in and just sort of comment on something that you said there, and something that I think Stazzy has said about accessing kind of more locally produced food and meat, and I think you said here, so I just wanted to quote you that something about going to the butchers, and they said that they couldn't sell organic meat because it was too difficult, even though it had been produced down the road. I think that's because farmers are really up against it when it comes to accreditation, and when it comes to organic accreditation. Farmers, animal and horticultural farmers, they have to jump through so many hoops that they could be producing food using very natural processes and in ways that you'd be really happy to eat their produce, but because of the red tape and bureaucracy around it and the accreditation system means that these people don't get certified, which means they can't sell it as such, and therefore people can't enjoy it. So it kind of really doesn't allow for those smaller scale people and producers to kind of access that market. So I mean, if you do know local producers, so for example, I know a local farm around here where the local farmer produces his own lamb. Well, he's not accredited organic, but I've seen his lambs, I've seen how they are looked after, I've talked to him about the process of field to freezer kind of thing, and personally I feel confident that that process fits with my values and what I'm looking for from my food. You can't be guaranteed anything if you get something off the supermarket shelf. You're not even sure which country that may have come from. I mean, often they do let you know, but it's interesting to think about the kind of bureaucracy that comes further up. The Open Food Network, who we work really closely with, are quite a good place nationally to start. So you can go onto the Open Food Network and have a look at your local producers via them. And they're also working, guys, just to follow on your point, helping food hubs set up and have a bigger buying power from a group of people that can go to local producers so that prices can come down, or where people that can afford to buy organic maybe just do a bit of pay it forward, so that there's a bit more food equality, supporting those people who can't quite afford it. So there's some really great things happening. But and I guess that's where our role is it's getting that information out to people. But I just wanted to kind of pull those 2 points together. Sorry.
Yeah, no, Sammy, that's perfect. And I was literally about to say, it's also about having that conversation as well. Having that conversation with local small businesses, and learning about building that reputation and learning about the process in how they get their food, and then using your own due diligence, your own judgment, and then. Yeah, exactly. Just because it doesn't come under a title doesn't mean it's very high quality still. And you're right. I think the politics behind it's trying to get people to jump through so many hoops. It makes it almost impossible to tick that box. And of course, it is. I mean, a guy that is we've learned a lot from, and I'm sure a lot of you know of him when we follow him quite a lot. A guy called Charles Dowden. He's a guy who grows over in Somerset. He's an amazing guy. Great content online. Excuse me, very knowledgeable. He's not. We just assumed when we were like, oh yes, you're obviously organic and stuff like that. And although, yes, he is organic, he's not technically organic because of what we said, the hoops you've got to jump through and stuff like that. And he's a very sort of open-minded, shares very similar views to all of us, I would imagine. But yeah, he's not certified organic, and you think it'd be effortless for him, but he's not. Like, he's like whatever sort of thing. And we had this conversation in this restaurant, organic restaurant, and they were saying to us, what are you doing about certification? I said nothing. I said all our practices are organic. We don't touch anything. Everything comes from the garden. It's horse manure. We know we're organic, and I guess there's a level of trust involved here, isn't there? And I said I will never even entertain that thing of the whole certification, because I don't even want to be a part of that system. I want to distance myself as much as possible, I should say, from that system. And there are so many amazing people doing similar things, and I think we're still early days right now. We're going through a massive transition in the world, but if you look at some of the trends, the demand for like smaller scale, like locally grown, like independent growers is really picking up. We've, in the last few years of us growing, we've seen that tremendously, and obviously PFFA, you guys are right in the middle of all that. So we're still early days, but we just got to keep the ball rolling. And
Sorry, I was just going to say, I was just going to do a little plug for us then, because in July, our focus for the month is to buy direct and buy local. So we'll be sharing lots of resources to support people doing that, and sharing lots more information, hosting a couple of a round table and some discussions with food hubs and food networks that are helping people to buy direct and buy local. And we're looking at how you can overcome that kind of cost issue, which is the main barrier around that. So keep an eye on our stuff for that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, at the moment, that it is the way it is. It's a sort of numbers economy scale kind of thing. As more and more people join and start to transition this way, costs will start to come down. Hopefully, more and more people will be able to grow and donate food as well. But we understand not everybody can do that. But it's just the times we find ourselves right now. This is the sort of price to pay to work towards our sovereignty and creating the infrastructure and the landscape we want to see in the world we're happy to live in. It's unfortunate, it's just one of those things, but it's the investment we make now for our children and the future to come that we want to see. If it's a bit of a bumpy road, bring it on. I'm up for it. But I just wanted to say one thing is, when it comes to seeds, obviously we're learning more. If people can have access to this, is learning more about seed saving.
I was going to say that is the main thing as well. A big point is
really big
becoming educated on saving your seeds,
and also
for a few reasons.
Like companies that we love are like the independent UK companies, like the Real Seed Company, Vital Seeds, the Seed Cooperative, because they, I believe 100% of their seeds are all produced from the UK. And the thing I love about these companies is that they have education on how to save your seeds. So for a seed company to tell their customers how to save their own seeds, from a business standpoint, that's not good. So just to me, I go, wow, these companies are amazing.
And you want to then give them more money.
So
we just try and promote that as much as we can. And their ethics and ethos is fantastic. And just certain things we don't necessarily think about. By saving your seeds, and some plants are easier to save their seeds than other ones, but you think every year you grow that plant, that variety in that environment, because everyone's environment is slightly different. Might be similar, but we have our own little micro sort of climate. The seed, the intelligence will adapt to the environment, so it will get stronger and stronger and stronger each year. So you're going to get a better crop each year. So it's just a real beautiful way, again, to work with nature and enhance the local produce of what you're actually harvesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I just
wanted to say we're coming to the end, and I just feel like it's really great to sort of start wrapping things up with really solution focused ideas and suggestions about where we can go and what we can do to take back that power ourselves and start you know, creating how we want our future to look, rather than sitting back and waiting, how's it going to look and what's going to happen to us? Well, let's create that ourselves, and let's do that by buying like local and direct. Let's save our seeds, let's grow more, let's come together in community. So it's really nice to start edging towards the end of our conversation about these things. Thank you so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just having those conversations.
I think, yeah, sorry, Karen.
No, it's about having those conversations and just sort of starting to build those networks, be it online, in person, going to events, going to workshops. You know, there's been a huge spike in people transitioning over to this way of thinking and wanting to grow food. Even if it's a windowsill grower, if it's a market style garden grower like we are, it's building those connections. Yeah, it's going to take some time, you know, but it's just where we're at right now, and it's finding confidence within that, and confidence in the community and in yourself. It's an amazing position we're in right now. You know, it's not going to be smooth sailing all the way. We adapt, we grow, but together we do this. We go stronger as a unit, as a collective, and it's exciting times. It really is. It's been aware of the not so pleasant, and then taking action with what it is going to bring more light and love into the planet.
Great point. Yeah, because 2020 to 2021, we got pretty fired up about a few things, and then we were like, our energy was getting zapped. Yeah, and then we looked at each other, we were like, okay, going into 2022, we need to be more solution focused, and that's when we really cranked up Nourish Community and really went for it. And it, hands down, like, we wouldn't be having this call with you guys right now if we didn't change our mindset and focus more on solutions. And we've connected with so many amazing people, and like yourselves. So that conscious shift really has propelled us on this journey. And now we're connecting with people. We're doing workshops. We're chatting with you guys tonight. And having this connection is what I think fuels us and empowers us just to keep going. And
yeah, you stand in the park. Is it sorry if I'm not going to pronounce this right, Coroza? How do we say your name? Yeah, Mike's. But yeah, you said stand in the park group has turned into a grow your own group. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, brilliant. And seed swaps and plant swaps. Yeah, perfect. Nailed it. That's lovely. So good to hear. Yeah, grow a few extra plants and give them away. We always grow a surplus, so just in case things, you know, don't make it.
That we found is a few of us have been away on holiday, but because we've got this nice little cooperative, we'll go around and water each other's gardens while they're away.
Lovely. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
I like that. That's
amazing. Oh, it's so lovely to hear that. Yeah, I love the fact that Stand in the Park group is now a grow group.
That's awesome. That's a great news. Yeah. But yeah, and if there's anything we can help with, more chats. We recently, the last couple of months since our last online workshop, we started that food growing group on Facebook, which is now starting to build momentum. It's really nice to see people sharing photos, because we love seeing what people are up to, you know, and then it's like asking questions. What's going on? How's it going? You know, and all that. So by all means, like, you can keep in touch with us. And then if you have any questions, if you're thinking about maybe starting a food growing project, or if you have general questions, you can always get in touch with us via our social medias, because even though we're busy people, we will eventually always get back to you. Okay, just keep hounding us if you haven't heard from us.
Yeah. Apologies if we take a little while sometimes. Yeah, can get a bit busy. But I think I'd just like to also add in is, you know, life has a way when you make that sort of switch in your head and you get more solution and positive focus. Life has a way of sort of bringing more in on what you focus on. It really does. You know, the physical matter and the space in between it literally can start to work in a way to act like a magnet and draw it in. When we made that transition, for us, 2020, which was so bad for so many people, was one of the best things that happened in our lives. But we made that switch in our head. And food growing, and I always like to sort of close on this, I guess, food growing can just be food growing, but it can be so much more. And we're in a position right now where we are literally putting in the foundations. We are, as a collective, for creating an amazing place where we can live and for generations to come. But it's making that switch in your mindset, and it's beautiful. It really is. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, anything we can do to help along the way, because for us, food growing is just like one aspect of this whole sort of change in life. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. We always have such a lovely conversation with you and information. And I think that the responses in the chat have proved that the conversation tonight has gone down very, very well. So I think on that note, if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah, we're 5 past, so I think that's
Yeah.
good.
Wrap it up and start watering our gardens.
Yeah, tend to your babies.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for joining
Yeah, thank
the
you,
FFA
everyone.
and
Thank
Nourish
you for the comments.
Community.
Yeah, thank you for getting involved. We love to like interact as well.
And I think someone asked about how to find the Facebook group. Sammy, maybe I could put it in the chat, or well, actually, if you've gone, I can just say it. If you go on Facebook and you literally search Nourish Community, grow in the community. That's the group where people can post photos and chat and stuff. Or you can follow us on Instagram and then we can chat there as well.
And what I'll do is I'll put those links. This will go on our YouTube channel, on the People's Food and Farming Alliance YouTube channel, and any information and direct links that you may need will sit underneath this video as well. Okay.
And the Grow Guide bundle you mentioned as well, because there's a lot of sort of information and content there to get going with. So that can just take a little bit of weight off the shoulders and free up the mind a little bit.
Much appreciated.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.